and a very beautiful community. I apologize to have been with you a little less frequently recently because health has been violent, and this is actually the first time that I'm sitting up today, and I'm immediately with you, which is lovely. But the bad news is that I'm not sure our conversation will be that lovely. Half of you feel mixed about having it, and some of you don't want to have it, and the rest of you have asked me to have it, so we'll have it. And that's because I think that the conversation needs to be had, because you can't pretend that Musk doesn't exist. He's a political reality now we have to reckon with. So Musk has been monomaniacally focused on domestic UK politics, and he has, with hyper focus and cascading frequency, shared wildly deranged / untruthful claims about a very serious issue in UK politics, which shouldn't be played down. That's a scandal involving the abuse of girls in impoverished English towns with an ethnic dimension by British Asian men. And it's a story of a failure of state capacity, a failure of the prosecution service, a failure of the social services. And once it was investigated and the report was produced, a failure of national politics to respond in a robust enough way. So it's a failure of state capacity. It's a story of multi-institutional tardiness and prejudice and ignorance. But Musk is not engaging constructively with any of these issues. Instead, he's saying things like, and I've got all of this stuff in front of me, and I won't read it to you, but it's said wildly untruthful things about the ex-UK Prime Minister Gordon Brown, many untruthful and rather wild things about the current Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He's called UK parliamentarian Jess Phillips an evil witch and worse things which I can't read. And you could engage critically with Jess Phillips's decision-making around the issue of the scandal historically, but you can't deny that she's an advocate for the rights of women and girls on a scale that Musk could never dream of being himself. He has said that somebody's gone to jail for conspiring, planning a riot, for criminal damage, for possession of a weapon, has gone to jail for a mere tweet. And on this goes. So what the hell is going on? And I think that folks among you who want me to comment on it just appreciate that I'm a British citizen, and what do I, in my capacity as a political philosopher and public intellectual, think about this dynamic that's developing? Well, let me say 2 or 3 things briefly. Number one, it's important to appreciate that the damage that Musk is doing is really significant, right? He is throwing poison arrows at UK democracy on a smaller scale toward German democracy too, and he's thrown one at Austria. But he's throwing poison arrows at UK democracy. And even if Musk turns away and finds another issue to be obsessed about in a few weeks, the poison arrows will continue doing radioactive, infective damage to the fabric of UK democracy, because they are thrown into a context of a fermenting crisis of trust, right? They're thrown into a context where you have a technocratically centrist government in an age where technocratic centrism is wildly distrusted. And so these interventions are a kind of a conduit, potentially transferring the UK closer toward democratic collapse, closer toward what Hungary is today. So the degree of damage is to be taken seriously, and the nature of the damage is to be taken seriously. It's not just false claims floating around. It's an intervention that has concrete causal consequences, right, that we can debate about how much, increase the chances of democratic collapse in the UK. Might be by 0.1%, but that's very significant still. First point. Second point, because of the first point, the response has to be really robust. Because what's at stake is not just, misrepresentative claims about the UK government are floating around. It's we are in really turbulent waters, right? And we don't want, as Rory Stewart said the other day on social media, sort of be the boiling frogs in this dynamic where increasingly political discourse is disinhibited in this way by people like Musk, and we keep normalizing it. Well, it's just a bit of craziness and untruthful eccentricity. No, you've got to, having acknowledged the serious damage, now, number two, do a serious response. Now, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer responded robustly without naming Musk and also without playing down the issue of the scandal. But I think you need to go further in two ways. Number one, you actually have to have a diplomatic policy toward how to deal with Musk, almost as though he were a country. Number one. And number two, you have to take him on aggressively and directly, but in a confined way, confined to the issues that are being raised. And that actually means you can go further as the UK Prime Minister and aggressively take on Musk personally. And you can have clear ideas about the role of cabinet ministers, who also can say stuff. Now, what you don't do is you don't leak out from the issue. You take him on very aggressively on the issue. And you say, well, he said 48 things and 24 of them are a disgraceful lie. You can do that. And you need to be aggressive at that level. What you don't do is seep out into other issues and thereby create an undue quarrel for yourself with the Trump administration. Final remark, and that's that you have to understand the compulsiveness that drives Trump and Musk in this case. And I promised to do a video on the main channel about that because I actually think you can't understand either Trump or Musk without allegedly discussing their alleged neurodiversities. In Trump's case, it's alleged. In Musk's case, it's half alleged because he talks openly about autism but doesn't talk openly about ADHD. Now, because our neurodiversity education is so low in our culture, I won't speak now in terms of neurodiversity, but people who know about neurodiversity will understand some of what I'm talking about. Now, how does Musk's compulsiveness work? Why does the BBC tell me that he's tweeted 48 times about the UK in a 24-hour period with several lies? And I'm going to attach a BBC Verify fact check of some of Musk's claims. And when I do that, I want to be clear that the conduct of major journalistic institutions around fact checking has been a disgrace. They have allowed that institution to sort of creep and leak out into the realm of contestation and interpretation. So I'm not saying a major institution has fact checked something and therefore it's right, but in this case it is right. So imagine that you are looking through a brochure of houses that you're dreaming about buying, and you are actually obsessed with restoring antique stoves, and there's a beautiful antique stove in that house that needs restoration, and just that stove makes you wanna buy the house, even though you need to think about every other issue that matters more than the damn stove. That's a little bit analogous to how Musk gets obsessed with countries and issues there, which he doesn't understand. Here is another analogy that's important. Imagine that you are at risk of being a victim of very rapidly thinking you understand something when you only have 2% of the understanding you need to have for it, right? In some cases, that might be beneficial, in the sense that you could be better positioned to develop great moral clarity on issues, which most humans in a chicken way fudge, like the climate crisis, for example. But you also risk feeling that you've really grasped something before you actually have considered everything that's involved. And that's Musk. So Musk thinks he's understood UK politics sincerely. He knows he's BSing in these posts. He knows that there are plenty of untruths there. But he thinks on the bigger picture, he's right. And he's sincere about that. He feels he's really understood UK politics and he's got it nailed. And he understands that it's essential, as the FT reported 2 or 3 days ago, that the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is ousted from office before his term is out. Now, that's just something that the FT has said, and we can say that's allegedly true. But the point is that some such pattern is completely plausible about Musk. I bet that's what's happened. He's got it into his head that he's got to do whatever it is in his power to get Keir Starmer out. And that's for reasons that sit in Musk in a very clear and sincere way. He's convinced that this needs to change because this is a very evil pattern for the UK. So Musk has got this clarity that he is sincere and benign and well-meaning, and he's averting some kind of disaster. This is linked to a broader pattern of Musk's, and that's that he's now convinced himself that technocratic centrist politics is an evil disaster that needs to be rapidly overthrown virtually by any means because it's doing so much harm. And he's convinced of that now, right? And so that creates this sort of extraordinary, rapid, sort of premature, sincere conviction in the context where he has at best understood 2% of the issues at hand, right? And this is very, very difficult because of the extraordinary degree of political power that Musk has. So this compulsiveness will not go away, and we need to recognize how much damage it's doing, A. B, react to it very robustly and aggressively, and 3, also understand exactly how it works so that we can anticipate and respond properly. Lots of love.